Hello folks, Tristen Borland here with the Wildcats Network, and before you watch this Wildcats Roundup, I wanted to talk to you about something. This Wildcats Roundup was recorded between March 11th and around March 14th. The problem with that is that you're going to hear a lot about how the game between Connellsville and Gray Latrobe is going to be at Graham Spoda Field on Monday, March 18th. However, at the time that I was editing this video and trying to put it out, it was changed. The game is now on Saturday, that'll be March 16th. So tomorrow, at the time of this recording, because it's Friday, on March 16th, Gray Latrobe will play Connellsville at Graham Spoda Field with the starting pitch scheduled for 1 o'clock. I want to make sure everybody knows you got to go out to Graham Spoda Field and support the Wildcats at Graham Spoda Field. Make sure you support them at their home opener. Again, we apologize for this confusion. It is on Saturday. It was changed while we were editing the roundup, so there's nothing we can do about it now, but we appreciate your patience. We hope you really enjoy this roundup. We put a lot of work and effort into these roundups because we know that that's what you people deserve. You guys really deserve the best that we can do, and that's why I, as the editor for a lot of these roundups and a lot of videos that you see here on the Wildcats Roundup, I really try my best every single day because, again, that's what you guys deserve.
Before we get to today's episode of the Wildcats Roundup, we want to thank the folks at Robindale Energy Corporation for making this possible. Robindale Energy was incorporated in 2000, and its mission to provide sustainable and clean energy guides them to this very day. With a vast network of affiliated companies and industry relationships, Robindale Energy can tackle a wide variety of operational needs that their customers have. Check out robindale.energy to find out how Robindale Energy Corporation can add value to your business. Thank you again, Robindale Energy, for making this episode of the Wildcats Roundup possible.
Hello folks, thank you for joining us here on the Wildcats Roundup. Joining me today is a man who needs no introductions, but I'm going to give him one anyways, and that's Mr. Chris Beddick. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Tristan. Glad to be here.
So Chris, heading into last season, there were a lot of questions about the situation on the mound, but I believe that Coach Basciano has been able to put together a pretty awesome pitching lineup. Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree, yes. Last season, with the help of his pitching coach, Mike Polinsky, the Cats were able to assemble a pitching staff of mainly 4 pitchers, Logan Bradish, Riley Smith, Luke Nipar, and Dom Carini. They basically carried the load on the mound for the Cats. They were able to push them to a level that was able to get them to the playoffs and was able to get them to the WPIL finals.
So Wildcats ended the season 17-8 overall, 9-1 in 4A Section 3, and won the section title for a second year in a row. Chris, based on what you saw over the 2023 season, is there anything that you can point to and say that right there is why the Wildcats were so successful last season?
Well, a lot of things have changed in baseball over the last 150 years, but one thing that hasn't, it's still a game of pitching. And as I referenced before, the Cats pitching staff, led by senior Logan Bradish, catapult to their season. Now, not to mention, not only was their pitching the driving force, but also they had a very good year at the plate. Pretty good offensive numbers by Logan Bradish last year. 2 homers, 25 singles, 14 doubles, and so forth. So Logan had a nice year at the plate, among others. Lou Amatucci, Anthony Masseri, Jacob Kramer, Logan Boring, and of course Eric Batista, among others. So it's a nice combination of solid pitching and some timely hitting that catapulted the Cats to almost to the Whippy Championship. With
the section title in hand, as you mentioned, Gray Latrobe went on to the Whippy playoffs as the number 5 seed, playing Kiski at Norwin, winning that 7-6. After that, Wildcats would win over number 4 Chartiers Valley, while at Gateway, they won that game 4-2. Chris, something that I noticed during these games was the clutch gene that the Wildcats had. It didn't matter what the situation was. They just seemed to be able to pull it out. They were able to focus and really get in there. Would you accredit that focus to the teachings of Coach Basciano and his staff?
Yes, that's certainly a part of it. And I think a large part of it, too, though, is it's still about the players. And the Cats had really good senior leadership. Always good to have leadership. And then usually it's your seniors that drive it. And, you take Eric Batista, Tyler Fazekas, Anthony Masseri, again, Logan Bradish, keep bringing his name up, but he was such an important part of things last year. The senior leadership really drove the team, along with other leaders like Louis Amatucci, who will be a senior this year, and so forth. So the team had good leadership last year that was able to put forth what the message was from the coaches and was able to push the Cats to having a nice season. Although it ended disappointingly, you can look at it and say, boy, the Cats had a really good season led by those players.
Now, Chris, you mentioned that tough loss at the Whipple Championship. Now, because of an agreement between the Whipple and the NFHSN, the Wildcats Network was not allowed to go to that. However, Chris, you were at that game at Wild Thing Park. you be able to tell us about what it was like to be there at that stadium for that game?
Well, it was a great game. It was a great atmosphere. The Cats, I recall, getting off to an early lead, but they weren't able to hold it. Montour was very good in coming back. They hung in there. They had good senior leadership also, and they didn't quit. And, the Cats had the tying run on second base in the last inning, and they just weren't able to get it around. So it was a great game. I'm sorry, they lost to Hopewell, not Montour. They beat Montour. It was a great game against Hopewell, and it was a 4-3 loss. It was a tough game, a game that could have gone either way. When you lose by one run, you can point to things that could have gone their way, but it didn't. And, so it was a tough loss for them, but Hopewell certainly deserved the win.
Now, with your coaching background, Chris, especially in the sport of baseball, I imagine you were watching that game a little bit differently than most people would. Was there anything that you saw in that game that you think should be addressed during these preseason practices so that the Wildcats can make it not only to the Whitfield Championship, but finally walk home with a championship title? They haven't had one since 2017.
Well, I think it comes down to pitching in the end. By and large, the pitching got the Cats to that final game last year, and they're going to rely on that this year. Now, of course, Logan Bradish was a key part of that, and he has moved on. But they've got some pitching returning this year, and they're going to lean heavily on Riley Smith, who pitched a good bit last year, and then also you're looking at other pitchers. Don Carini is a returning pitcher. Luke Nipar, maybe possibly Jake Lloyd, and others. So they're going to have to lean on those pitchers if they're going to get back or get to where they want to go. Losing Bradish is big, obviously, but of the four pitchers that I mentioned earlier, Bradish, Riley Smith, Luke Nipar, and Don Carini, three of them are returning. And that's going to be the key to this season, is how well they do on the mound, pitching. Even still today, it's still all about pitching. If you don't have good pitching, you're not going anywhere. It's just like if you don't have a good quarterback in football, if you don't have a good goalie in hockey, and if you don't have good pitching in baseball, you're going nowhere. But I'm confident that the Cats will have a good showing this year. Those three pitchers have a ton of experience, and they should be coming into this hungry, not only to win another section title, but hopefully push forward and compete for the WPIL title.
So, Chris, you mentioned that the Cats are going to be hungry to come back and earn that section title. The hum around here in the studios for the Wildcats Network is three-peat. Based on, kind of what you've seen from last season, what you've talked about, and obviously you've done your research, would you be confident to say that we should be seeing a three-peat here for the section title?
Well, nothing's guaranteed. I think we'll be able to compete in the division. Uniontown is going to be very tough for the section. They only lost two players from last year's team. Laurel Highlands is also well coached, and they usually are a competitive team. So there's just two teams right there that I think are going to give the Cats all they can handle. But when you look at Latrobe, what they have coming back, Lou Amatucci, Riley Smith, Jacob Kramer's coming back, Don Carini, Logan Boring, Mason Leonard is going to be an important part of the team. Cooper Basciano was the starting shortstop last year, and he'll be their starting shortstop again this year. So, and there's other players that are coming up that were JV, and they dressed varsity. They didn't get to play much. They're going to have an opportunity to do that this year. So it's just a matter of coming together, getting good pitching, having good leadership, pull things through, and beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and hopefully be able to compete and beat the teams that are maybe above you or equal to you. But I don't see any reason why the Wildcats can't be competitive and certainly compete for their section this season.
So my last question for you today, Chris, I'm not sure how many people you told about this, but we want to make sure it's officially announced here on today's Roundup that the commentator for 2024 for our baseball season will be Chris Beddick. Chris, I really wanted to know, before we head on over to Coach Basciano, what does it mean to you to be a part of these baseball broadcasts?
Well, I'm excited. I haven't done it before, but baseball and hockey are my two favorite sports, and I've been involved in the baseball or the hockey broadcast for a few years, and that's a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to it. Our first game is this coming Monday afternoon. I'll be ready to go, and I hope the Cats are ready to go, because it's always exciting to start a new season, whatever the sport is. I'm excited to get going this Monday with our first broadcast. It means a lot. I love baseball and obviously Latrobe and such, so it should be a lot of fun.
Chris, as always, thank you so much, and we're going to head on over to see what Coach Bass has to say about the preseason, getting ready for their game against Connellsville on March 18th. Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us here at the Wildcats Network for the Wildcats Roundup, episode number 6 for baseball. Alongside me is the one and only Coach Basciano. Coach, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're a very busy gentleman.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, Coach, while we're out here at practice, I think about an article that Mr. Bill Beckner wrote last year when you guys were getting ready to play ball on tour, when he said, the program is hardwired with allegiance from a positive-minded coach and staff to a common goal to one another. Now, two things are clear to me reading that. Number one, Mr. Bill Beckner has quite a way with words. And second of all, you guys have a culture here that a lot of teams are either jealous of or are trying to emulate themselves. What is the secret? What is the recipe to build a great baseball culture?
I appreciate that, but I don't know how many teams are envious of us or our culture. But we definitely stress the team concept. We preach team. It's on our gear, and that's our number one goal. We have steps in the locker room, and we'll check them off when we achieve them. And that number one goal is to become a good team. And I think you go back in the successful years that we had, they were a great team-minded group. Last year, no different. It was a different guy every day stepping up. Wasn't the same one. And they didn't want to lose for one another. They truly believed in that team concept and whatever they could do for the team's success.
Now, Coach, we continue on with the talking about last season, a section win, the back-to-back section win, punch your ticket to the WPIAL playoffs, having multiple huge upsets. And I know the way the season ended was not what you wanted, but I think we can both agree that this season coming up, the Wildcats have a lot in store for us.
Well, like we said, we got to get back to becoming that good team first. Obviously, we want to get back in the playoffs, win the section, and make it as far in the playoffs, both WPIAL and states, as we can. I think last year's experience helps a ton. We do have a good bit coming back. We definitely have some notable losses. But as soon as we can become that good team, get into the section, which is going to be very tough this year. Uniontown, Bell Vernon jump out right away as front runners for the section. So it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight to replicate what we did last year and hopefully take it a couple steps further.
Now, with great teams and even good teams, you guys have great pitching. You had that last year, and from what I'm seeing, I think you guys are going to have that again this year, especially with that pitching lineup. Are there any players right now in the preseasons that are standing out to you as possible aces?
We just had one scrimmage so far against an always good Pine Richland team. And we got to see a few different pitchers, and we liked what we saw from them. And it's early to gauge anyone right now, but I think if we get that mindset, we have Riley coming back as a starter, Luke getting some innings, Hayden Porterfield with some innings. Now, we do have some experience, but it's when you get out there in those section games, if you haven't been there before, that you really want to see where they are. And good scrimmages early on will give you an indication, some tough exhibitions before we get into it. We want to be tested before we get into the section, and we'll have a little better idea where we stand, not only pitching, but also the defense and the offense.
Now, when we talk about, the experience here on the Wildcats, not only do you have it on the pitching mound, but you have it in the field as well. Jacob Kramer, Eli Boring are just some names that we know in terms of anchors. Now, do you think that those players are ready to step into some leadership roles here on this team? And do you think they're ready to bring this team back to another successful year of baseball?
We definitely have some returning starters this year, and I look to them for that experience part. They know what to expect, like we said, with the difficult exhibition schedule, and then also it's going to be a very difficult section this year. But I look to the seniors because they've been with me for a number of years. They learned from the seniors before them, and it's their team. And when they step up and they start taking charge, and that's when that team concept starts coming along. Good teams will be led by a coach. Great teams are going to be led by the players, and that's what we're looking for.
Now, when you talk about this team being led into this season, March 18th, your first game of the season, the home opener here at Graham Sabota Field, you're going to be playing against Connellsville. Now, this is a team that the Wildcats know very, very well. Is there anything that you're expecting and that you're trying to prepare for with Connellsville?
Rob and Connellsville are always a great team. They're always competitive. They go out there, they're fundamentally solid. They have good pitching, timely hitting, good defense. So we know it's going to be a fight, and that's why we always schedule them. We want to go up against those good teams that are going to be tough, whether that's a win or a loss, and see where we stand against those better teams. So we're starting. Right now our focus is on Derry, the next scrimmage, and then we'll start preparing for Connellsville. But with the scrimmages, the exhibition, everything is leading up to that section, and really that's the opener for us, that first Laurel Highlands game.
So, Coach, as always, thank you so much. Can't wait to see you guys play against Connellsville on May 18th. You excited?
Oh, we're ready. Well, I shouldn't say we're ready. We're getting ready. We're getting ready.